In the late 1990s and early 2000s, email, chat rooms, and IMs had become a popular form of communication for many using the internet. And although many used them innocently, many people used them to spread fear by creating meaningless chainmail hoaxes. Emails that would be sent en masse to countless email inboxes telling users to spread the message, or else something bad would happen. Forward this email to 20 people, or something will come to your house at midnight and kill you. Despite how silly and obviously untrue these chain emails were, many people still shared them, either out of superstition or for fun. In 1999, one particular message was being shared in internet chat rooms. If a guy by the name of Slave Master contacts you, do not answer. He has killed 56 women that he has talked to on the internet. Please send out to all the women on your buddy list. Also ask them to pass this on. He has been on AOL, Yahoo, and X site so far. This is no joke, and please send this to men too, just in case. Send to everyone you know. At first glance, it's easy to dismiss this message as a hoax, but was quickly becoming known at the time as spam. It doesn't insist something bad will happen to you if you don't forward it like a lot of chainmail did, but it did sound fantastical nonetheless. However, this message was, for the most part, genuine. An AOL user by the name of Slave Master frequented chat rooms and IMs as early as 1994. He would find and message women, looking for those interested in submissive BDSM. This is how Sheila Faith, a 45-year-old Colorado resident, encountered the Slave Master. Presenting himself as a successful, wealthy businessman, he offered Sheila a job, as well as promising to support her and her 15-year-old disabled daughter Debbie. Debbie had spina bifida, and therapy and support was expensive. Sheila agreed to the Slave Master's terms and moved to Kansas. All of Sheila's post was forwarded to this new address. Shortly afterwards, she and her daughter disappeared. Years later, in 1997, the Slave Master would strike again. This time he began to message a 21-year-old Polish university student called Izabela Luica. The Slave Master presented himself as a rich entrepreneur and promised Isabella a promising internship. Isabella decided to take the Slave Master's offer and dropped out of university. Isabella also signed an exploitative slave contract, granting the Slave Master complete control over her bank accounts. Once Isabella left for Kansas, she only ever communicated with her family via email, admitting to getting married to the Slave Master at a local county register. In 1999, Isabella claimed that she was going on an extended trip abroad with her husband. This was the last time she was ever seen again. The Slave Master's final online victim was Suzette Troughton, a 27-year-old nurse from Michigan. Again, the Slave Master promised the victim a lucrative job, this time a $60,000 position caring for the Slave Master's fictional, diabetic, wheelchair-bound father. The Slave Master, presenting himself as rich, insisted he would travel with Suzette across the world. Suzette believed him and moved to Kansas in early 2000. However, unlike previous victims, Suzette left behind key information that would lead to the identity and eventual arrest of the Slave Master. She wrote down his name and phone number and gave it to her mother Carolyn before leaving for Kansas. As soon as Suzette left for Kansas, Carolyn began to receive typed letters allegedly from her daughter. Carolyn found these letters suspicious the moment she received them. Not only did her daughter never send typed letters, but the writing style did not sound like her. They were also free of spelling mistakes, which was odd because Suzette was supposedly a very bad speller. Carolyn decided to call the number her daughter had left. A man answered the phone. A man called John. After Carolyn inquired about the whereabouts of her daughter, the man claimed she'd stolen his money and run away. This didn't sound like something Suzette would do at all, and on March 1st, she called the police. The police didn't have any hard evidence that John had done anything wrong, but they did use wiretaps to build a case against him. While John was preparing for his next victim, the police were watching him. It didn't take long. John coaxed a young, unemployed woman from Texas to meet him at a motel. While the woman and John were in one room, the police were in the other, listening. The woman had agreed to meet John for sex, but things quickly became aggressive as he forced her to perform acts against her will, hit her, and took photographs without her consent. Although this constituted a the police still did not apprehend John. It is unknown why the police did not arrest him at this stage. Perhaps they needed more evidence, or perhaps they assumed the woman was consenting. But it wasn't long until John lured another woman to the same motel and repeated the same acts of depravity. This time, however, she called the police to file an assault and theft charge. Aside from assaulting her, John had robbed her of sex paraphernalia. The woman who had previously been assaulted also eventually came forward to the police. The police not only had a solid case to arrest John at this point, but they also had probable cause to search his property. On June 2nd, 2000, John was arrested. With the help of cadaver dogs, the police found the decomposing bodies of Suzette and Isabella within a 55-gallon chemical barrel. At another property, the police discovered yet more oil drums, containing the bodies of Sheila and another victim he had killed many years before, called Beverly Bonner. They had all been killed by blunt force trauma to the back of the head. However, the true extent of John's despicable nature traces back years before his internet persona as the slave master. The slave master was a man called John Edward Robinson. Born in Illinois, he had a difficult childhood. His father was an alcoholic and his mother was strict. He was described as overly pompous with delusions of grandeur. As a Boy Scout, he was even able to travel to the UK and sing for Queen Elizabeth II, and received a kiss from Judy Garland and spoke with Gracie Fields. This likely only contributed more to his arrogance. At 13 years old, he attempted to join the priesthood, but dropped out after just a year due to constant fighting with the other boys. At 17 years old, he tried to become a medical radiographer instead, but dropped out of college after 2 years of study. He then moved to Kansas City and started work at a children's hospital with the help of fake credentials. He now intended on becoming a doctor, but these plans fell through once the hospital discovered he had used fake credentials. John married Nancy Jo Lynch that same year, and they had a child not long afterwards. John was able to secure a job as an X-ray technician, but soon began embezzling funds and having an affair with patients and colleagues. After 2 years, he was finally arrested for embezzlement and convicted. However, he was given a suspended prison sentence and 3 years probation. He was later arrested for stealing 6,200 stamps from another employer, but for whatever reason, this was not considered a breach of probation and he was not sent to prison. John changed companies again, this time selling insurance. He was once again caught embezzling funds from his employer, but after agreeing to pay restitution, all charges were dropped, and John avoided prison yet again. However, his probation was extended, and he was barred from leaving the state. In 1971, John founded a medical consulting business. His company was hired to provide financial consulting by the University of Kansas Medical Center. However, he was quickly fired after he requested to access their funds. He clearly intended to embezzle yet another company. 4 years later, John was caught forging signatures on letters to secure a large sum of money with stock scams. John was indicted for security fraud, mail fraud, and false representation. But instead of a prison sentence, John was fined and had his probation extended yet again. Despite John's illegal activities, he was well respected in his local community due to volunteering efforts, especially with his local church. In 1977, John managed to become a member of the board of directors at a local disability organization. Using his position, he forged numerous letters to civil leaders, including the mayor, inviting them to an award ceremony for Man of the Year, an award which John had generously given himself. A state senator even attended and presented John with an award plaque. Although the people involved would quickly uncover the hoax, John would face no consequences. In 1979, John successfully cleared his parole with a clean report. Over the years, John would continue his trend of embezzling money from employers while having affairs. However, he was eventually caught and charged with felony theft. He was ordered to pay $41,000 in restitution and served 60 days in prison. Once John was out of prison, he raised the money he needed by conning people with fake investments to shell companies. It was around this time that John found his first pre-slave master victim, Paula Godfrey. He hired her for one of his fake companies as a sales representative. John decided she needed training, and after picking her up from her parents' house, Paula was never seen again. John was interviewed by the police after her parents filed a missing person report, but was let go. Shortly afterwards, the parents received a typewritten letter purporting to be from Paula, claiming she was okay and did not want to see them again. This letter was even signed by Paula. As such, the police terminated their investigation. Around this time, John had joined a secret BDSM club and adopted the title of slave master. As part of this club, he and others would bring victims to be tortured and it is possible this is where John brought Paula before her disappearance. John's club eventually transitioned into a BDSM specialized brothel. It was at this time that John's brother came to him to ask for help. He and his wife had been unable to conceive a child. John lied and claimed he had connections to adoption services. In reality, John went to a woman's shelter under a false name and met a young, single mother called Lisa Stasi. He claimed he would give her a job training in Texas. She believed him, and shortly afterwards, he took her and her 4-month-old baby to a local motel. He then made her sign countless blank pieces of paper. Lisa's mother, Betty, received a disturbing phone call from Lisa the following morning. Lisa claimed the authorities had found her unfit to look after her child and that Betty was seeking custody. After the phone call, Lisa disappeared. Not long after, John gave Tiffany to his brother, along with forged adoption papers. For his efforts, he accepted a large lawyer fee for brokering the adoption. At the same time, he sent Betty a typewritten letter claiming to be from Lisa. Her signature was at the bottom. In the letter, she claimed she was going away and did not want to be contacted. Years later, when John was arrested in 1993, a DNA test was conducted to prove the young girl John's brother had adopted was actually Lisa's daughter. Irv Blatter, an ex-con John had hired to assist with his shell companies, had been in contact with the Secret Service, who were investigating John for fraud. Blatter provided the authorities with evidence and a statement attesting to John's illegal operations, and John was shortly arrested thereafter. Out on parole, John hired a woman called Teresa Williams as a prostitute at his brothel. He intended to use her to frame Irv Blatter for murder, but after an incident where he threatened to kill her, she left under the protection of the FBI. John's probation was revoked and he was given a 7 years prison sentence. However, due to a legal loophole, John was able to get an appeal and avoid prison. In 1987, John met his second pre-slave master victim, 27-year-old Catherine Clampett, a single mother from Texas. John promised her a job and the opportunity to travel the world. She disappeared shortly afterwards, and to this day, her case remains unsolved. Although John was able to avoid prison before, in 1987 he was finally sentenced to 4 years in prison for fraud. 2 years were eventually added for previous fraud charges and violating probation. In prison, John seduced Beverly Bonner, a 49-year-old prison librarian. Bonner divorced her husband in 1993 after John was released from prison. She told her family that she had accepted a good job at John's company. Bonner's alimony checks were redirected to John's postbox. Shortly afterwards, she disappeared. This is when John began stalking the early internet as the slave master. John is currently on death row. In 2005, his wife divorced him. In 2006, Heather Robinson, the daughter of Stasi who had previously been taken by John, filed a civil suit against those responsible for putting John Robinson in contact with her biological mother at the women's shelter. She settled for an undisclosed amount of money, splitting it with her biological grandmother, Patricia. While John awaits execution, he remains secretive about many other potential atrocities committed. One police investigator said, "He won't ever tell. It's the last control he's got. There are probably other barrels waiting to be opened, other bodies waiting to be found."